Okay, so we had started with আমার কথা শুনতে যাচ্ছো?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we had started with Bose-Einstein statistics and we had discussed a few definitions. I quickly just mentioned what the definitions were. So we learned what degrees of freedom are. Okay, I'm not reading out. We just know that if there are F coordinates required to describe the energy of a particle in a system, and if there are n particles in the system, then the total number of degrees of freedom is n multiplied by f. Okay, so f is the degrees of number of degrees of freedom. Then position space. What is position space? The coordinate space in which the position of a particle is specified, namely the our Cartesian coordinate system will be the position space. Okay, in the position space, for a single particle we require 3 coordinates. For a system of n particles we require 3n coordinates. Okay, so this is the definition of position space. Next is, okay, and this is also very important. An elemental volume in the position space is denoted by dV equal to dx dy dt. Next we discuss momentum space. What is momentum space? Three-dimensional space, three-dimensional coordinate system in which the axes are the linear momenta, the components of the linear momenta of the given particle. Okay, so once again 3n coordinates will be here to describe the total momentum, the momentum, not, I shouldn't say total momentum, the momentum of the particle at a given instant. Okay, elemental volume in momentum space is denoted by dpx, dpy, dpz, elemental increments in the individual momentum directions. Phase space. What is phase space? This is very, very important because we are going to refer to phase space a lot. Combination of position and momentum space is known as phase space. So momentum space is three-dimensional, position space is three-dimensional. So the just a second. Okay, so phase space is will basically therefore be phase space will basically be 6-dimensional. We have 3 dimensions of position and 3 dimensions of momentum. So the combination will be phase space. Okay. So any single point in the phase space will be denoted by 6 coordinates: x, y, z, px, py, pz. All right. And obviously elemental volume in the momentum space is denoted by this. D tau is equal to, see, we denoted elemental space in the position space, elemental volume in the phase, in the position space we denoted it by dx dy dz dv. Momentum space dpx dpy dpz dvp. Okay, and d tau, that is the moment total phase space volume, is denoted by d tau, given by dx dy dz dpx dpy dpz. All right, next is the mu space. The next is the mu space, which is the minimum. We want to know what is the minimum size of a phase space cell. Okay. So for a system comprising of a single molecule, the coordinates x, y, z and px, py, pz we know that it will completely specify the position of the particle in the phase space. The energy of this molecule is given by 1 by 2m px square plus py square plus pz square. It is moving. We consider only the kinetic energy. Okay. So energy of the molecule is also obtained from the momentum space. The momentum space not only gives us the momentum of the particle but also the energy of the particle. Now, a six-dimensional space for a single particle is called a molecular phase space or mu space. Okay. So you have to understand that the phase space is for the system. The mu space is for a single particle, six-dimensional space for a single particle, which is called the molecular space or the mu space. Okay, if the position of the molecule is changed, the phase will undergo the phase space. All right. So this is the phase space. We have just one laminar portion. Remember, imagining this is very difficult because we have 6 dimensions. Okay? We have 6 dimensions. So imagining 3D is easy, but imagining 6D becomes very difficult. Okay? So in the 6-dimensional space, we have taken only one pair of such dimension, that is x and ax. All right. So in this space, this is I want to do this recall because this picture is very important. Okay. So these small boxes. So see, the entire space is divided up into small boxes, white boxes. And in that there are some gray boxes. So these gray boxes are where the particles exist. And the dimension of one gray box is dx along the x direction and dpx along the y direction, or rather the px direction. Okay. So the area of such a small occupied box or any such box is dpx dx. This is a two-dimensional energy sheet. All right. So dimension of a small box is dpx dx. So the phase cell, we call these the phase cells, and the phase cell has an area of dx dp. Okay. And the volume of particular box in the phase space will be d tau equal to dx dy dz dpx dpy dpz. All right, 6 dimensions. Imagining the picture is very difficult, very abstract, but we can at least think of it in terms of such a 2D laminar. Now, what I told you was that in the classical limits, the smallest size of the phase cell is given by dx dpx equal to some small number given by h0. Now, in the classical limit, there is no restriction to the smallness of this number. It can be anything. It just has to be small. There is no restriction. You cannot say that it cannot be smaller than a certain number. It just needs to be small. Okay, that is the classical limit. Arbitrarily, when this theory was proposed, it was chosen as either 10 to the power minus 30 arc second or 10 to the power minus 35 arc second, or maybe smaller. So see, it's arbitrary. There is no restriction. It can be 10 to the power. Order of magnitude is also not restricted. It may be 10 to the power minus 30, it may be 10 to the power minus 35, anything. All right. But in the quantum limits, the smallest size of the phase space is limited by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, because see, the area of a phase cell is given by dx dpx or dy dpy or dz dpz, And we know that according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, the product of such two complementary parameters, x px or y py or z, or for that t dt delta E energy, it can be at most be small only up to the limit of h, where h is the Planck's constant. All this we know from Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So in the quantum unit, we cannot let the area of a cell be really small. It cannot be smaller than Planck's constant, because that is the restriction imposed by Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Okay. So the phase space volume, which will be given by the product of these three quantities, so it is equal to h cubed, and in quantum statistical treatment, in accordance with the uncertainty principle, the coordinates may be specified. Coordinate of a particular particle can be specified only to the extent lying within an element of volume h cube. So you cannot zero in on a single point which is dimensionless. In general, when we give the coordinates of a particle, we say the coordinates in position space is x, y, z. The moment you are in phase space and the moment you are doing quantum statistical mechanics, you cannot zero in on a single point and say that its position is x and its momentum is px. No, there will be an uncertainty in the position given by delta x and an uncertainty in the momentum given by delta px, so that the product does not is not lesser than 8, and volume of the cell in the phase space, in the 6-dimensional phase space, has to be of the order of h cubed. Okay. And then we talked about the gamma space. Now phase space is for a single particle 6 dimensions. Mu space is also for mu space is the space where we are specifying energy. Gamma space is for a system of n molecules. For a system of n such molecules, we can describe the system in the 6-dimensional space, where n molecules will be given by n positions in the gamma space, in the phase space, right? Or we can define a new space which is 6n dimensional, and then a single point will give you the state of all this n molecules. We will not use the gamma space much, but this is another way of representation. Okay. Now comes very, very important. Why do we require quantum statistics? Because Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics had been there for a long time, and it would well explain kinetic theory of gases, etc. Okay, so obviously by now we know that since quantum mechanics revolutionized a lot of things, therefore the requirement of a new the presence of a new mechanics also entails the requirement of a new statistics. Now let us jot down the points. First of all, in the classical Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, we know that all energy levels are accessible to all particles. There is no restriction. All particles in the system are distinguishable. I explained this distinguishable thing to you in my earlier class, as far as I remember, that when you come to college and I am sitting with you in your class, I know who is Riya and who is Devkumari and who is Obhijit and who is Sharu, etc., and who is Anand and who is Drishti, right? So you are all distinguishable, identifiable as separate people. So that is classical statistical mechanics. All the particles in the system are distinguishable, and they do not interact with each other except during collisions. I mean, that is also true for us. We just don't keep on interacting with each other during a class, for example, unless there is some special requirement. We require a pen, or we need the calculator, or we, you know, something else. So it's only during a particular requirement, which in the case of particles is collisions, that they interact. But there are systems existing in which the particles cannot be distinguished from one another. For example, if suddenly college imposes a uniform, okay, a uniform and say a jacket, and it's very cold, and you all put on your hoodie, the same identical looking hoodie jackets with AJC Bose College written on it, and say you are all wearing masks, and you all come and sit together, and I mean, initially it would be difficult for us to identify who is who. So it's like that. So systems, we know there are systems in the world that exist where all the particles look the same. They have the same properties. For example, a system of electrons. We know all electrons have the same mass, the same charge. So how are we supposed to say which electron is, I mean, how are we supposed to identify electron A from electron B? They are all the same. Photons, they are all the same. They are all massless. They all have the same momentum. They all move with the same velocity. So how are we supposed to distinguish one photon from another? How are we going to say this is photon A and this is photon B? Not possible. So these are all identical and indistinguishable particles. Okay. So Heisenberg's uncertainty, again, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle leads to the multiplicity of energy states. Energy states can now have a multiplicity. And Pauli's exclusion principle, we know it exerts a restriction to the occupancy number of a particular state. We know that particles which obey Pauli's exclusion principle, they cannot sit together in one position. For a single position, only a single particle is allowed. So the same state cannot be occupied by more than a single particle. These are for particles which obey Pauli's exclusion principle. Okay. So when these restrictions are there, and then there were experimental observations like black body radiation, photoelectric effects, specific heat at low temperatures, etc., which could be accounted for by classical statistics. Okay. So what is quantum statistics? Quantum statistics can be either Bose-Einstein statistics, which we will do in detail, or it can be Dirac statistics. Okay. Now, in quantum statistics, we will be dealing with a very, very large number of identical and indistinguishable particles. So, the first and foremost criteria of applying statistics to a system is that, of course, we always apply StatMech to a system when the number of particles become very large, of the order of Avogadro number. In addition to that, in quantum statistics, the number of particles are, the particles that are there are all alike, identical and indistinguishable. So we represent the system by the wave function of a many body state. So there are, say, n particles, a system consisting of n particles. So each particle will have their position coordinates r1, r2, r3, etc. So we denote the system by a wave function. We have till now in quantum mechanics, we have only used wave function of a single entity system. Only in hydrogen atom did we encounter two-third system. Okay. But now we are talking about a system which has many particles of the order of Avogadro number. So we will denote the system by a wave function of a many body state. Okay. Denoted by psi of R1, R2, R3, R4, etc. up to Rn. So R1, R2, R3, etc. are, as I told you, position coordinates include spin. Now spin is also a factor that we cannot neglect anymore because we are in the quantum system. Now if the sign of the wave function remains unchanged, on interchanging the coordinates of any pair of identical particles, this is the wave function. If you interchange the coordinates of say R2 and R3, you bring the third particle here and the second particle there. So you interchange their coordinates. If on doing that, the sign of the wave function remains unchanged. Okay. See, I've changed R1, R2 to R2, R1. Then we say the wave function is symmetric. This is what we mean when we say the wave function is symmetric. On the other hand, if the system is symmetric, then the statistics that is followed is Bose-Einstein statistics. On the other hand, if on interchanging the positions, the function does change. Okay, we say the wave function is antisymmetric, and then Bose-Einstein will no longer be valid. We have to apply Fermi-Dirac statistics. Okay, so as you can see that quantum mechanics can be of two types, Bose-Einstein and Fermi-Dirac. If the system under consideration has a symmetric wave function, then we have to follow Bose-Einstein statistics. If the system under consideration has an antisymmetric wave function, then Fermi-Dirac statistics has to be followed. Now, when there is a symmetric wave function, the particles having angular momentum should be having angular momentum 0 or an integral multiple of h cut. So the particles which has angular momentum either 0 or integral multiple of h cut, they are the ones which have a symmetric wave function. On the other hand, antisymmetric wave function is particles which have spin angular momentum as half integral multiple of h cut. So 0 or nh cut, where n is an integer, if that is the spin angular momentum, then the system is symmetric. If the spin angular momentum is half integral multiple, or that is half nh cut, then the system has a antisymmetric wave function. Consequently, the categorization of quantum particles is under two classes. We can clearly see that there are two classes of quantum particles. So till now, as long as we have been doing quantum mechanics, we just denoted the particle as quantum particles, particles that follow quantum mechanics, which is the general mechanics, and under special circumstances that reduces to classical mechanics. We saw that when we did quantum mechanics in the previous semester, and we saw what kind of quantum mechanics, what kind of other interactions quantum mechanics leads to certain other kinds of interactions in the atomic level, in the molecular level. All that we studied in detail. But now we can, from this discussion, we can clearly see that quantum particles may be categorized into two classes, either bosons or fermions. So which are bosons? Bosons are particles with 0 or integral multiple of spin angular momentum, whereas fermions are particles with half integral multiples of spin angular momentum. So obviously the wave functions of bosons are symmetric, whereas the wave functions of fermions are antisymmetric. Pauli's exclusion principle is not applicable to bosons. So bosons are particles that are friendly. You just have to remember this, that bosons are particles that are friendly. They can sit together in the same state. There is no restriction to the number of bosons that can occupy a single state. Whereas fermions are very they're not very friendly. I mean, they can be friendly, but they don't share their space with others. Pauli's exclusion principle is applicable to fermions. A single state allows only the occupancy of a single particle. Okay, so these are the two main things that you have to remember, keep in mind, that bosons do not obey Pauli's exclusion principle, which means that a single state allows the presence of more than one particle, no restriction to the number of particles, whereas Boyle's exclusion principle is applicable to fermions, so that a single state cannot have more than a single particle. So, as I told you, there is no a priori restriction to the number of bosons in quantum state. The restriction is one fermion per quantum state. Okay. Examples of bosons are photons with spin 1, phonons with spin 1, pi mesons with spin 0, etc. Examples of fermions are electrons with spin half, positrons with spin half, mu mesons with spin half, etc. You can get such particles which, along with their spin angular momentum, in the book of particle physics by atomic and particle physics by Gupta and Roy, that see like seeing covered book, atomic and molecular, yes, atomic and molecular physics by Gupta and Roy. You can, that book, the particle physics chapter in that book is very good, very elaborate. Okay, for the time being, for our statistical mechanics purpose, we just need to know some examples of bosons so that we know what are the things that we are dealing with when we are saying bosons or when we are saying fermions. Okay. Okay. Now, before we move on, a note on the constant H, Planck's constant. Now, in classical statistical mechanics, as I told you, that the size of a cell in the phase space, 2D phase space, is given by dx dpx equal to h0, and it could be made arbitrarily small, as there is no restriction, no limitation to the smallness of this constant h0. So the number of cells gi in a given compartment in phase space may be made as large as pot. You understand what I'm saying? Suppose তুমি একটা xpx axis টেনে তুমি একটা রেক্ট্যাঙ্গেল এঁকেছো। এবারে আমি বললাম এই রেক্ট্যাঙ্গেলটাকে রুলার দিয়ে horizontal আর vertical lines টানো, so that you divide it up into small squares of equal area. So তুমি রেক্ট্যাঙ্গেলের লেন্থের সাইজ, ব্রেথের সাইজ দেখে নিলে, দেখে নিয়ে তুমি দেখে নিলে যে লেন্থকে কত ভাগে ভাগ করলে ইকুয়াল হবে আর ব্রেথকে কত ভাগে ভাগ করলে ইকুয়াল হবে, করে তুমি রুলার দিয়ে টানলে লাইন। এবার আমাকে দেখালে, এবার আমি বললাম যে these cells that you have divided the rectangle up into are very large, make them smaller. তখন তুমি আরেকটু বেশি ডিভাইড করলে, আরেকটু বেশি নাম্বার অফ সেলস তৈরি হলো। So this number of cells of that you are dividing one sheet up into is given by GI, and since the smallness of the area, যে একটা x dx dpx এরিয়ার একটা সেল এর কতটা ছোট হতে পারে, যেহেতু ক্লাসিক্যালি এর কোনো রেস্ট্রিকশন নেই h0 ভ্যালুর উপর, সেহেতু তুমি you can keep on increasing the value of GI, you can keep on increasing the number of cells into which you divide a particular area in the phase space. Okay, so GI, as a result, GI may be much larger than the number of particles Ni available to the ith compartment. ধরো একটা কম্পার্টমেন্ট, অনেকগুলো কম্পার্টমেন্ট আছে, এর মধ্যে আমি একটা ith কম্পার্টমেন্ট, এখানটা খুব ভালো করে বোঝো, হ্যাঁ, এর মধ্যে আমি একটা ith কম্পার্টমেন্ট নিই। এবারে এটাকে আমি জিআই নাম্বার অফ সেলসে ভাগ করলাম, ধরো আমি 100টা সেল তৈরি করি। এবারে আমি বললাম যে 100টা না, একটু বাড়িয়ে দাও। ধরো এরকম ভাবে ভাবি যে একটা রুমের মধ্যে আমি বললাম যে একটু কয়েকটা চেয়ার এনে রাখো, তোমরা বসবে, একটু চেয়ার এনে রাখো পাশে ক্লাসরুম। তোমরা 10টা চেয়ার নিয়ে এলে, 10টা আর একটু বেশি আমরা নিয়ে দাও, 50টা চেয়ার নিয়ে এলে, ধরো রুমের মধ্যে 50টা চেয়ার এনে রাখলো, কিন্তু ক্লাসে এসে বসেছে মাত্র 5 জন, কিন্তু অ্যাভেলেবল স্পেস মানে অ্যাভেলেবল position আছে 50, there are 50 available positions, but there are only 5 people who want to occupy those 50 available positions. So what is happening? You have a lot of choice. The 5 people who want to occupy the 50 available chairs, they have a lot of choice. The first person has 50 choices in front of him. He can take any one of the 50 available chairs. The second person has 50 minus 1 available chair. The third person has 50 minus 2 available chairs. Okay. So 5 people and 50 chairs means that GI, the number of cells, is much larger than the number of particles. It's like, for example, suppose after graduation, you go for a banking exam. Say there are 100 applicants and there are 1,000 positions. It's a totally, unrealistic situation that I'm talking about, but I'm just trying to give you an example. There are 100 applicants and there are 1,000 positions. So obviously all the 100 people will get a job, and since there are 1,000 positions in different branches, so you have a lot of choice to choose your branch. আমি কি বোঝাতে পেরেছি? এই GI মানে H এর smallness এর উপর কোনো restriction না থাকার জন্য I can increase the number of available positions as much as possible, and that may be much larger than the number of particles that want to occupy those positions. Okay. So the ratio Ni by Gi, which is called the occupation index, becomes much, much less than 1. 5 students and 56 applicants and 1,000 job positions. You understand? Ni by Gi becomes much, much less than 1 because Gi is much greater than Ni. And this is happening because there is no restriction to the smallness of the size of a particular cell. Okay, so the probability of a particular cell containing more than a single particle is negligible. Obviously, if there are 50 chairs and there are 5 people, obviously everyone will like to sit comfortably. Each person will go and sit in a chair. There is no chance that a single chair will be shared by more than one particle. And when the teacher comes into the room and he or she sees that there are 50 chairs and there are 5 students sitting, obviously all the 5 students will be properly distinguishable to the teacher. Whereas আমি যদি ধরো আমাদের কলেজে ক্লাসে ঢুকি যেখানে শুনেছি 700 স্টুডেন্ট, ধরো যে কোনো আমরা বড় রুমেই ধরো ঢুকলাম, 700-র মধ্যে যদি 500 স্টুডেন্টও আসে, 500 স্টুডেন্টের জায়গা তো আমাদের কোনো কলেজে কোনো ক্লাসরুমে নেই। তো 500 স্টুডেন্ট একটা রুমে বসে আছে, টিচার ঢুকে বুঝতে পারবে কে কোনটা এক চান্সে? To the teacher it's just a bunch of students. Whereas আমি যদি ফিফথ ঢুকি, হার্ডলি 5 জন ক্লাস করতে আসে, তাহলে 50টা চেয়ার আছে, কি ধরো 20টা চেয়ার আছে, 20টা চেয়ার আছে 5 জন স্টুডেন্ট। আমি ইজিলি বুঝতে পারবো কোনটা রিয়া, কোনটা দেবকুমারী, কোনটা আনন্দ শর্মা, কোনটা স্বরূপ সরকার, কোনটা অভিজিৎ মুখার্জি, এক্সেট্রা। ওকে, এই জায়গাটা কি পরিষ্কার হয়েছে কেন ডিস্টিংগুইশ ক্লাসিক্যাল মেকানিক্সে? বোঝা গেছে কি?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So basically this is what I'm trying to say. This is বলছিলাম XPX phase space এর XPX একটা ল্যামিনা নিয়েছি আমি, সেটাকে I have divided up into 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 7 7 is 49 equal cells. So GI is 49, and suppose there are 10 particles that want to occupy these 49 cells. Now I can make GI even larger because there is restriction to the size of one such cell. So 10 particles first particle comes and chooses any one of the available points. Second particle comes and chooses the next. In this manner, the 10 particles sit in 10 seats, and obviously they are clearly distinguishable. They are clearly visible. There is no sharing of space required. Comfortably, all the 10 particles occupy the available spaces, and even after occupying, there are plenty of empty spaces available. All the particles are clearly distinguishable. So in this case, classical statistical mechanics can be easily and safely applied. This is what leads to the distinguishability of particles. Okay. However, for natural systems where Heisenberg's uncertainty principle is obeyed, there is a limitation to the smallness of the cell size. The size is restricted by these relations: dx dpx equal to h, dy dpy equal to h, dz dpz equal to h, and h is a fixed number given by Planck's constant. It's a small number, but nevertheless it's a finite number, and it is restricting the number gi into which you can divide up the available space. Okay. So along a particular direction, the minimum value delta x delta px is this. Okay. The minimum size of a cell in the phase space, which follows quantum mechanics, is h cube. So d tau has to be greater than equal to h cube. It cannot be less than h cube. And h here is not arbitrary. Okay. So the number of cells gi in a given compartment in phase space cannot be made as large as we want. If you come and tell me that, yes, ma'am, this is the number of cells into which I have divided the compartment, and I tell you, no, I want smaller compartments. I want more compartments, not smaller. I want more compartments. Divide up into more compartments. Then what do you have to ask me? You have to ask, ma'am, are the particles quantum or classical? If I tell you they are classical, you can go ahead and make the compartments smaller. If I tell you quantum, you say, no, ma'am, I've already made the cells equal to h cube. I cannot make them smaller than that. So I cannot increase the value of gi. Okay. So gi, and remember the number of particles that we are dealing with in a system is of the order of Avogadro number. So see, the order of magnitude will not be very different. The value of h leading to the number of cells gi and the number of particles is such that gi may not be much larger than the number of particles ni available in the ith compartment. So you come in and you see there are 6 pairs, right? And there are 5 of you, so there is hardly any choice. So what is happening? Ni by gi cannot be made arbitrarily small. And the occupation index Ni by gi is almost equal to 1. So the number of available seats and the number of occupants for those seats are almost equal. You go for a job interview, you see that there are 100 applicants and there are 100 positions. There are 100 applicants and there are 110 positions. So almost equal to 1, Ni by gi, occupation index. So you have to, one thing you should know over here, that the occupation index is a parameter of great importance in deciding whether the system is quantum or classical. Okay. So particles can no longer be treated as indistinguishable. If there are 5 chairs and huddled up and there are 5 students, as I told you in a BCom class, there are say 200 seats and there are 300 students. So you cannot distinguish the particles. They are indistinguishable. So this parameter h It plays the pivotal role in necessitating the introduction of quantum statistics. Since H restricts the smallness of a given cell, so you cannot increase the number of cells as you please, so that the occupation number now becomes close to 1 and the particles are no longer indistinguishable. They cannot be identified as separate particles. So you cannot any longer apply Maxwell-Boltzmann statistics, which treats the particle as distinguishable particles. Now the particles become indistinguishable, and therefore a new statistics has to be introduced, which comes in the form of quantum statistics. Okay. So what is the consequence of indistinguishability of particles? Suppose the number of particles is 2 particles, and number of cells is 2 cells. Classical statistics will treat the 2 particles as 2 entities with different identities. So this is particle A and this is particle B, or particle P and particle Q. But quantum statistics will treat them as indistinguishable. Both are P or both are Q. So the occupation probability of the 2 cells according to the different statistics will look the following. Classical statistics, how many ways? PQ or QP. These two will be 2 different ways. 2 cells, 2 chairs, একটাতে রিয়া বসলো আর একটাতে অভিজিৎ বসলো, তাহলে চেয়ার গ্রিন চেয়ারে রিয়া বসলো আর রেড চেয়ারে অভিজিৎ বসলো will be a different configuration than red চেয়ারে অভিজিৎ বসলো আর গ্রিন চেয়ারে রিয়া বসলো. Okay, so P and Q occupying cell 1 and cell 2 is a different configuration than Q and P occupying cell 1 and cell 2. Also, since there is no Pauli's exclusion principle, there is no restriction to the number of particles occupying a single cell. Both can sit in a same cell. Both particles can occupy the same compartment. যেরকম বিকমের ক্লাসে হয় 100টা চেয়ার 200টা ছাত্র, তো শেয়ার তো করতেই হবে, or PQ. So although there are 2 particles and 2 compartments, but the number of ways in which the 2 cells will be occupied by the 2 particles is 4. Bose-Einstein কি হচ্ছে? Indistinguishable হয়ে গেল particles, তাহলে PP অথবা 2 particles in the same cell or 2 particles in the other cell. So one particular configuration is obliterated. একটা বাদ হয়ে গেল, since the particles are identical. But since Bose-Einstein does not have Pauli's exclusion principle, so they can still occupy, a single cell can be occupied by two particles. So either 2 particles in 2 states, or 2 particles in one cell, one of the cells, or 2 particles in the other cell. So 3 kinds of configurations. But these statistics আর কিছু হতে পারে না, because FD statistics follows both Pauli's exclusion principle. So only possible configuration is that single particle sits in the single cell. 2 particles cannot occupy same cell, and the particles are indistinguishable. So PP, particle A in cell 1, particle A in cell 2. Interchange the particles doesn't make any difference. All right. So classical statistics, just a quick recap. Particles are distinguishable. No restriction to the occupation number of a given cell. So 4 unique ways of occupation probability of 2 cells by 2 particles. These are the 4 unique ways. All right. Bose-Einstein statistics, particles are indistinguishable. No restriction of occupation of a number of occupation number of a given cell. Okay, so only difference between classical and B is that here particles are distinguishable, here particles become indistinguishable. So 3 unique ways of occupation probability of 2 cells by 2 particles. Either this or this or this. FD statistic, particles are indistinguishable, and Pauli's exclusion principle. So only one particle in a given cell. So only one unique way of occupation probability. Okay, I think these 2 slides explains clearly the difference between classical, Bose-Einstein and FD. And if you are given a system and you are told what kind of particles occupy the system, whether they are fermions or bosons or classical particles, quickly you will know how to initiate the organization of particles in the system, in the given number of cells. Okay. After this, we will start Bose-Einstein statistics. Of course, I will not do that in today's class. I will send you the slides. You go through these. The concept of why, quantum statistics comes into being. The concept of occupation index, that number Ni by Gi. How when it is very, very less than 1, then the particles are distinguishable, and how when Ni by Gi becomes of the order of 1, the particles become indistinguishable. That reasoning is very important. এই কনসেপ্টটা যদি ক্লিয়ার করে নিতে পারো, তাহলে স্ট্যাটমেট বুঝতে কোনো অসুবিধাই হবে না। Okay. So with these things in mind, we will now go over in our next class 2 Bose-Einstein statistics and study in detail how the Bose-Einstein distribution formula is obtained when the particles are in a system are following Bose-Einstein statistics. Okay. Any questions now?